Welcome into another edition of Inside Carolina's This Week in UNC Baseball. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt. I am Tommy Ashley. That is Scott Forbes, head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Scott, we were talking a little bit before we started. It's game day. We don't usually do these on game day. So just sort of let our folks know, what's it like for you on a game day from start to finish?
I mean, it changes. Earlier, it's a little bit quicker because we're playing at 4 o'clock, sometimes 3 o'clock, obviously, on the weekends when we're at 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. But now that we're transitioning to the midweek 6 p.m. game, the Friday or now Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you just have to try to transition your body. But a typical game day for me is I'm an early riser by nature. Try to change my clock a little bit, being realistic that I can't wind down after a 6 o'clock game and go to bed. I like to go to bed, Tommy, every night at 9 o'clock and get up about 5, but that's not the way life works. So typical game day, though, is, I like to get in. I like to go ahead and get the game prep done first because you have a lot of other things that you have to do as a head coach. But I want to get ready for Gardner-Webb. The staff we have here with Coach Jackson, Coach Weirs, Coach Howell, Coach Gaines are unbelievable. And then you got Carter and Daniel and Dave. But we're just getting ready for Gardner-Webb, pouring everything we have into that, making sure we have our reports done. Now, our team's more important having them ready, but we had a great practice yesterday. But just looking at matchups, who they're starting, we talk about our lineup. Are we making any changes? Is anybody out? Did an injury pop up? Did anybody get sick? What is our pitching plan? Get all that done. Try to have that done. If it's a 6 o'clock game, our pregame meal's at 2. So I like to have it done by probably 10 o'clock, maybe 11 at the latest for that opponent that day. And then knock out some other things that need to be knocked out. We usually talk about recruiting every day, things like that, but more just getting ready, and we get early work. The thing I love about the later games is we can bring a guy in early, work in the cages, bring a guy in, work on outfield play, work on infield play. But this is my favorite time of year, April 1st, warming up. I would like to go at 5 instead of 6, just because I don't like those late games, but just a lot of prep that goes into it that people don't see.
Aren't you the head coach? Can't you decide?
You know what? Yeah, I'm going to try. I actually thought about today. Next year, we might be having these quote Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday games. I'm going to try to start going at 5 o'clock. I want to do a poll or have our folks do a poll, see if it affects tickets, because I don't want to, prevent people from getting here and getting in their seats. And filling up this place, and we've done a really good job of that. And that really helps our team. So I'll do whatever. I'll play at 8 o'clock if it's a bigger crowd. I think we played at 8 o'clock against West Virginia, and this place was slammed. So I can deal with it. I can change my routine. But this is why you coach too. Not, obviously you coach for other reasons, but the game day, the prep, that's the best thing. And and you have a shorter week. So you got to work ahead a little bit. The players, I don't want them thinking about Duke, but looking at Duke, looking at getting some stuff in, game cards and matchups, just constant prep, basically.
Look at here. Look at there.
I need to learn to mix in a nap. That's what Coach Williams recommended to me. I've gotten a little better with it with the night games, trying to just have I don't even call it. My mom used to call it quiet time. I think she made me have quiet time when I was a kid because I was all over the place probably and never quiet. But try to have a little bit of time, just to 30 minutes to just maybe lay on the couch in the office before those night games help you a little bit.
I was going to say, could you sleep there? Would you have to go find a closet somewhere to hide where people didn't bother you?
I've got some places that are kind of hidden here. That I've got another office downstairs that's connects to the coach's locker room. But when you're lucky like I am and you love your staff and you love being around each other, a lot of times if we're done early and we're down there after our pregame meal, we're just sitting there and talking. If there's a game on TV, we'll watch that. I like to be out early when our players get out there and be able to talk to them as well.
Coach, we've talked a lot about batting average being a misleading statistic. What else do you guys look at besides your quality at bat chart when you guys are grading at bats? Are you looking at batting average on balls in play, OPS? What kind of goes into that?
OPS obviously is one of the number one things that you're hoping is good. Ours is not where it needs to be. Slugging and on base percentage, those two things added together. But looking a lot at like, what does a guy look like in the box? What's his routine? Is he sticking with it? Is his routine only good when he's doing good? When really your routine should be what you really need when things aren't going great, or something goes against you, a bad call, a pitch that you think you should have hit that you missed, you fouled back. Just working with guys on those things, they understand how important that routine is, because it's vital for a hitter. If you watch these major league games, they all have them. They all look like almost their own tranquilizers. So relaxed. And then yesterday, I really talked to the guys about making sure you have a good time. I firmly believe you have to have fun when you're playing this game. And sometimes you fight it I was telling them, I was watching a game on TV, and the hitter last year hit 242, 22 home runs, and he just signed an $18 million contract. So he's failing a lot, but when he does damage, he's doing damage, and that's the goal. Looking, and self-awareness, like what type of player are they? Some guys obviously are going to look to really do damage in a 2-0 count, even if the pitcher's first two misses were pretty bad, like a Luke Stevenson. You got a guy like Madera that's trying to get on base, and there's nobody on base. His approach is going to be a little bit different. I might consider looking at this pitch to make him throw me a strike. But also, if there are runners and the bases are loaded at 2-0, I want to do damage. So a lot of different things go into it.
When there are losses that, like the last Miami loss, that Sunday you guys couldn't get that sweep, and there are losses like that, especially at home, how do you keep the guys making sure that they are having fun? How do you instill that, hey, we're still here to have fun, we're playing the game we love?
I tell them if they don't have fun, it's on them, because I'm going to have fun. Nobody likes to lose. But it starts with me as the head coach. And I have to be the same, or try to be the same. If the effort level is good, the guys are getting after it, they're lifting hard, they're working hard, they care about winning. What are you going to do when you lose a game? And I try not to say too much. The other day, I was telling Tommy before you hopped on, Grace, I went back and looked, and I'm like, okay, that ball Sam hit was hit 109, and Ogden stabbed it and threw it the first. I think if that ball gets through, we win the game. And in the game of baseball, every now and then, that's just the way it goes. And he hit a ball also to right field that on most days, that ball is up in the field hockey net. There's another run. And that happens sometimes. So sometimes you just have to be like, guys, y'all, if you're pressing, it's stupid, because you're actually having really good at bats. I don't think it's as bad as it looks. So don't buy into what the outside's saying. Don't look at up there at the batting average, because the last, since the Sunday of Boston College, we've had some pretty dang good at bats. Sometimes you just don't have the runs to show for it.
Sticking on the at-bats, a lot of people talk about approach at the plate and all that, and most folks see that as, whether you're taking or swinging or things like that.
Of course.
Do guys have 3-0 green lights, or is that your call specifically? And also, it seems sometimes your guys are really patient, and then other times they're really aggressive.
Yeah.
Is that a scouting thing, or is that a player field thing, or just sort of explain that aspect of it?
It's definitely a combination. It's for sure scouting based on the pitcher, and you have to adjust the scouting report. You could say, hey, this guy, his command is usually A, and all of a sudden that day he's just not commanding it. The 3-0 is, it's well known. We're gonna swing 3-0 if we get a good pitch, because that's a lot of times that's your best pitch. Sometimes we're not. I'm going to tell you, or anybody else, what the sign is for a green light and what is not. But I want our guys to feel confident. There's not a great hitter in ever that's played that's not aggressive. We call it aggressive but selective. Like, you got to control the strike zone. I've never been around a good hitter that's going up there, hey, I'm trying to walk right here. You're going up there to hit, and then you're going to control the strike zone, and you're okay with the walk, because that's just like a single. But it depends. It depends on – I think what the average person doesn't understand is how hard hitting is, and how difficult it is, and how that little percentage ends up. Those guys that you're watching on TV in the big leagues, they should be getting paid that much money. because the teams are making that much money. The owners have all this money, and they're the rare few that can do what they're doing against the pitching that everybody's throwing out there. So I always look at schedule and opponents, but as far as your question, our approach is always going to be to try to swing at our pitch and to get a good swing off. There'll be times where we may be patient more than others, but a lot of times that is dictated by the pitcher's control and what he has going on that day.
And that changes batter to batter a lot of times, especially in college with that. So flipping it around a little bit.
Well, some pitchers, their stuff is just so nasty that you better be ready to swing. And if they have control and it's that nasty, like if you want to go up there and look at one, well, Walter's starting the game the other day, 96, 98. That might be the only one you get. You don't want to get to 2 strikes on certain guys, but with certain guys, we tell our guys it's not a big deal. He doesn't have anything to wipe you out with. So really be selective. That's sometimes where it can look like you're probably a little more patient.
Same thing with pitching. It seems like there have been a lot of 0-2 or 1-2 hits or home runs really against you. When you're approaching batters, this guy likes to swing first. He's going to swing first pitch. He's swinging, so you don't want to give him anything down the middle. How do your pitchers sort of approach that with Coach Gaines, Coach Howell, going against guys, knowing what they tend to do, and you're all into analytics and all that, and then avoid that 0-2 home run that we've seen a lot in baseball?
Yeah, and that's the most frustrating thing, as a pitching coach is a lot of times that's just an off-speed mistake. You got a guy with a strikeout pitch. I think of a Rob Wooten that's got a disgusting slider. Well, guys have disgusting sliders. What do they have a tendency to do? They hang them. And when you hang them, sometimes they don't come back. That's what happened to DeCaro the other day. Just, out of the blue, he throws a curveball, and the curveball's up, and the guy wasn't looking for a curveball. He just saw it, and it's gone. But with this pitching staff, I always remind Coach Gaines, don't let the hitter's weakness trump the pitcher's strength. Like if Jake Knapp is pitching and your strength is you hit fastballs well, it's me against you because that's Jake's strength. That's his go-to pitch. Now he's improved his off speed, so you can keep guys off balance. But scouting reports go into it. You are looking at holes. You're looking at hitters. What their weaknesses are. But even if Ryan Lynch, for instance, doesn't look like on paper he's the best matchup with their best left-handed hitter and a left-handed pitcher is. If I think Ryan Lynch is our best pitcher at the moment, I'm putting him in there.
I was actually going to ask something about that, Coach Forbes. In specific, when calling pitches, I know it's Gaines that's calling them right now. How much do you guys factor in the tendencies of another batter? Say you have a guy who really likes to hit the first pitch fastball.
You talking about pitch calling?
Yes, he'll always the first pitch swinging. How much do you guys factor that in to calling a game, and will that change depending on kind of the inning, if it's a starter, if it's a reliever, if it's the second inning, if it's the 8th inning, stuff like that?
Yeah, the quote about, failing to prepare is preparing to fail is very true. So we're, if anything, over-prepared. Like you ought to see the reports that Coach Gaines does, Coach Howell, Coach Jackson, Coach Weirs. I won't call it over-prepared because you can't be, but I refuse to go into a game not prepared because it's a terrible feeling. And I don't like that feeling. Then you adjust. But pitch calling is, I did it a lot. It is I don't like to use the word stressful. That's what everybody else would call it. You're pretty exhausted at the end of every single game, but it's a very important part of the game. And Brian Gaines is very good at it. Or I wouldn't let him call the pitches because I felt like that was a strength of mine. I had a lot of weaknesses. I felt like I was a better pitch caller than I was probably a pitching coach, if that makes sense. Like I was a catcher, I wasn't a pitcher. I was decent with the mechanics. I think Coach Gaines, Coach Howell, great with both because they both pitched as well. But I think being a catcher helped me call pitches. And Coach Gaines was with me for 4 years when I was calling pitches. and I have now the pitch comm in my ear. And I don't say much. I hear every single pitch that's being called. And we all work well together. There's no egos. All we want to do is win. And there may be a time where I look at Coach Gaines and I feel strongly that we should throw a certain pitch, and I'm going to tell him, and he'll throw that pitch. Or he may look to me because I've been there. You're like, man, I don't know what to throw this kid. It's his 14th pitch. He's fouled off a million pitches. And when Coach Jackson was here, I kind of look at him, and he would, if he said something, he felt strongly about it. If he said nothing, he didn't know either. So then you just have to make the call. But it still doesn't trump what pitch calling is a lot easier when the pitcher calls it where you call it, throws it where you call it. But we're still going to pitch to our pitcher's strength over the hitter's weakness. You hope that you can do both.
Do you miss pitch calling at all?
I miss the adrenaline rush of it. Probably. Like, I like that. Like, I think you have to be like, hey, you make some bad ones, but you got to be willing to have the kahunas to call them, so I miss that part of it. But I don't miss you don't get a pitch off the whole game as a pitching coach, in my opinion, because you're always thinking about who they got coming up. All right, what is our next plan? Knapp's getting up to pitch 90. How's he looking? That's where I feel like I can help Coach Gaines because I did it. If I had not done it, I would probably just be like, dude, I don't know. I haven't called pitches. So I don't miss it. I wouldn't enjoy doing it as a head coach because I'm trying to think about all of it. I want to be to help him. I want to think about who's going to pitch hit. Do we need to hit and run? Those type of things. So really, no, I don't. I don't miss that part of it.
How many times does a pitcher get to shake a call?
Our pitchers have 100%, unless I don't think there's one right now. I've had some before where I said, dude, you are not shaking. We have overthinkers sometimes. A couple come to my mind. I'm not going to say who they were. And I would they'd get a kick out of it because we probably still talk about it. But our guys know, like, hey, you better not walk in here saying I should have thrown this, because you're throwing the ball and you have permission to shake, right? Like, okay, you want to know why you're shaking. The difference in college is if you're a professional, you've got more time. You're not going to class. You don't have you can sit there and watch all the video. You can, right? But like, you don't have quite as much time in college, but our guys still do that. Like Jake Knapp will come up and watch Duke tomorrow. And the better ones do that and they want to do it, but some guys don't want to think. So some guys like, Coach, I am not shaking you off. Like, period. So I just remind them, don't walk in here saying I should have thrown a change up. And that's just the blame game. That's a loser mentality, as we say here. Like, if you're a blamer, that's just loser mentality. So you have permission to shake, because I don't know, like, Jason's a great example. If we call a curveball, but he feels terrible about the curveball, but he likes the slider, just shake and throw the slider, or go back to your fastball. And you want your pitchers to feel that ownership, like it's their game, not yours. You're just trying to help them be successful.
What happens if I shake and one ends up in the Aaron House parking lot?
It depends on. There's always a backstory. Like, okay, there's probably a 3 classification shake: average shake, above average shake for the pitcher, or why in the world did you just shake today? Do you have a brain? Like, that's where it's like that's the stupidest thing I've ever, like, what? Tell me why you shook today. I just want to know. And then if there is no answer, it's like, okay, well, we did do a scout report. We spent a lot of time looking at the scouting report. But you got certain guys. You got an Alex White out there. Like, I'm not saying a word if that dude shakes, because I trust him, and I know that he's shaking based on what he thinks he's got that day. And you try to work with guys and figure out who's good, who's not good. And Coach Gaines and Coach Howell do an unbelievable job at that. Like, Jake's a great example. He's going to throw what he wants to throw. He's been pitches his 6th year in college. Like, he should know what he wants to throw. And if it ends up in the net, you know what? If you gave him the permission to shake, you just talk about it later. You don't want to do it in the middle of the game and have a blow up, and then everybody's focused on that blow up instead of winning the game.
You kind of talked about your pitchers like Jake watching film. And I know we've talked to Jason and he'll say he'll watch his games just a little bit later. Ryan told us that he watches his pitching motion by like shadow pitching in the mirror. What do you encourage them to do when they watch film? Do you encourage them to watch their own starts, watch who they're about to go up against, and what kind of tendencies are you telling them to look for?
Talking about pitchers or just in general?
Pitchers.
Pitchers. Number one, I always ask our players, would you want to watch you play or pitch? What kind of body language you have? Do you look like you're in control? Do you look confident? Are you a whiner? Do you have bad body language? Now, obviously, I'm going to fix that if you do, but they should be able to coach themselves with that as well. And then, you got some guys that don't think at all, some that overthink. The ones that don't think at all, you might want them to watch a little more. The ones that are overanalyzing their delivery, but they're pitching unbelievably well, just stay with what you're doing. Don't overdo it. So more watching. As a pitchers, I just do encourage, like, just watch too, because sometimes you think a pitch was in a certain spot, like, hey, I made a good pitch, but I really didn't. And I got away with that pitch. So when we face a better team, or if that was a 4-hole hitter instead of a 9-hole hitter, I need to make a better pitch. So that ownership and that accountability. But these guys are athletic. They're playing at the highest level, so you want them to coach themselves a little bit too. But again, we are in a different generation from the standpoint of, you got a billion coaches. So you can't listen but to so many. And you don't want too much distractions and noise. What you don't want, I got to send this video here. I got this guy over here. I got this guy over here. I got this pitcher coach tell me this. I got this hitting coach tell me that. It just doesn't work. So, try to be specific with what video you're watching and how much.
How do you guys, staying on the pitching, how do you guys grade different pitches on the team? I had someone ask me, like, what do you think is the best pitch on the team? And I was like, well, I think that's a misleading question. I think you kind of have a metrically best pitch, but then it might not work in a game because it can't be thrown where it needs to be thrown. And you can have like a most effective pitch, like Aiden's changeup has just been awesome with like swing and miss and whiff. How do you guys figure out which are some of the best pitches on the team and which will be the most effective?
You're talking my language now when you said it may be the best on paper, but if you can't throw it where it's supposed to be thrown, it don't matter. Number one, right? So that's not the best pitch. We should say, what is the best pitch that can be thrown for a strike consistently? And then you can say, okay, maybe the numbers then go into it, right? Like, okay, if Owen Johnson is throwing his fastball where he wants to, with his induced, it's nasty. It's hard to hit him. His fastball is hard to square up. He may not strike you out, but it's hard to hit it in the gap. It's hard to hit it over the wall, knock on wood. Okay, if Walker McDuffie throws a bad slider, his slider is so nasty, it's still a pretty good slider. And he can throw it for a strike about any time he wants to. So that's where this new age stuff does give you some feedback and can help you. Hey, you really don't need to be throwing this pitch because you think it's good. And yes, you can throw for a strike, but it does nothing. Let's just focus on the slider instead of the slider and the curveball. With Aiden, worked on a cutter, but the changeup is so nasty. Let's stick with the changeup and the curveball and the fastball. So really, you're grading command first, combined with how nasty really is the pitch. And if you get those two together, like a Ryan Lynch fastball with that kind of ride and the combination of the slider, those are both really nasty pitches. Then you can have a guy that may not have one nasty one, but he's got 4 that he can throw wherever he wants to in any count that gives you fits. So there's different ways to look at it. Like, DeCaro's grading probably system on all of his pitches may not be out the roof, but when he's throwing really good, he can throw a fastball, both sides of the plate, one with more backspin, one with some sink, a curveball, a slider, and a changeup. So totally different looks all the time. Where Jake Knapp's got an elite fastball, so that he's going to throw it more. Dalton Pence's got an elite fastball. If he can throw it where he wants to, it's going to be hard to square up. McDuffie, an elite slider. We call it the boomerang slider. Like it's just hard to square up. Even when you're sitting on, like, a great hitter like Cuvée was probably sold out on the slider, but he hit it off the end at 96 and it just found a gap. So that's the kind of the nastiness. But it's like Seagraves. If Seagraves gets in the zone more, which he will, like the combination is going to go woof, because all of his stuff is nasty. He's just got to get in the zone more.
We're spending a lot of time on pitching, and I feel like that's been the best part of your team thus far.
Which is good.
Yeah, 20. I know everybody wants to talk about the bad stuff or the lesser stuff. I like talking about the good stuff. And speaking of that, you've talked a lot about wanting to have 8 to 10 guys-ish that you can rely on and count on. Are you there at this point in this season?
I think so. I think we have more than that. Cam's a great example. I think Seagraves is the guy that's going to pitch in big leverage situations for us. He had that one bad outing, but we got to still get him in there. We have to use him. Olin emerging out of the bullpen. We're going to start Folger tonight on a pitch count to get him, because he's got to pitch, because Folger looked really good the other day, but he hasn't pitched a ton. And the way you get better is innings. But yeah, I do. I feel like we're in a good spot. Maddie, we can now use Maddie like we did last year in any situation and pitch him more, which will help him. He's not a guy that just needs to go out there and close a game. He needs to pitch and continue to be run out there. But I feel good about where we are. Our pitching is going to give us a chance for the most part to be in every game. And I think our offense, I met with our staff this morning, because the players are going to feel us, is it's not as bad as it looks. Like if you're really watching the games and you're watching, I hate to use, because you have to make your own luck. But we've had some pretty good at-bats the last 3 weeks. I think against Miami, if we're playing that ball with the same conditions we played against South Carolina, we're scoring more runs. But also in the league, what are you facing? And, I also think that when your offense heats up, you're going to really start rolling. That's your hope.
Is it a concern? Is your offense a concerning thing right now?
Not to me. Going into the season is kind of what I expected. I thought Angelo and Bass would have a little more power numbers, but again, they're new, and Angelo's really swung the bat well lately. I thought Ron Kellis would have more, so some of it hasn't panned out. But at the end of the day, too, Gavin and Vandy really hadn't gotten going. We're only halfway there. I look at it more like, okay, it would be more concerning if I wasn't seeing anything. But I'm like, we're 21-7, and we really haven't swung it. And I know that we're capable of swinging it. But we're also not, you're not going to just rarely, at least in my career, Vance Honeycutt, his 29 home runs, they don't just always show up. You don't have a freshman. I mean, how many freshmen right now are going to hit 24, So every team's different, but I still think this team is capable of winning big games. You look at every game. Even our losses, like, we have chances, and at the end, we're just not scoring in that game in particular, or we lose a game randomly against Stanford 9-13. So the biggest thing is you do the opposite. If you're panicking or you're concerned, the team's going to do the same thing. You just keep doing what you're doing. And in baseball, get those bats hot enough with our pitching and with our defense, that's when you have a chance to go on a run. But I'm definitely not concerned.
What do you kind of do in that situation? Because you talked about it on Sunday. You can't really force hits. You can't force a team to get hot. And they have the potential to get there, but it's just not all coming together right now. What do you kind of do to baby step them into getting where they need to be? Is it mental adjustments? Is it physical adjustments? Is it kind of like Sam, where you give him more at bats even though his batting average hasn't looked amazing, and just hope that helps them kind of get to the point they need to be?
Yeah, stay the course. Practice what I preach every single day. Don't let outcomes or distractions. Be process oriented. Because we could be hitting 340 right now and have 56 jacks, and then get down around the ACC tournament and be cold and just not be able to score. And then your season's over. Or you can be okay, and all of a sudden, you keep plugging, you find ways to win games and keep the guys believing. they start understanding that, okay, batting average really doesn't matter. It's the batting average today. Like, what do we do if we play well today? And let's say today we get hits and we hit a couple, like South Carolina. Nobody talked about hitting. Everybody against South Carolina talked about we were down, came back, down, came back. We won 13-8. So why would you do that as the head coach? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And the makeup of your team, people don't understand, like, okay, well, if they're struggling, why is this guy still in there? Why is that guy still in there? At North Carolina, the premium is going to be on picking the ball up and not giving extra outs and having those horses on the mound and being strong at the middle. Because if you don't have that, you will not win. You can be the number one hitting team in the country right now. If your run average is a 7 or an 8, you're going to lose. But if you can pitch it and other teams know you can pitch it, then you start scoring more runs on average. The pressure level goes up on the other team. And, we couldn't manufacture those runs against Miami. But sometimes it happens. I've always been a believer that good pitching beats good hitting.
Yeah, we talked a lot at the beginning of the season about the defense. Obviously, it was definitely a different defensive look than last year. You got a brand new outfield. You got Hunter at first. He's coming back. Alex is at short. Vandy's at second. And left field had a little bit of difficulty early on. But you talk about your defense. How have you seen that improve over the course of the season and then really come together so you're not giving teams extra outs to support your pitching staff?
Yeah. I think being realistic, first of all, like, I like our outfield, but we have the best outfield in the country. We haven't had that every year. We have the best center fielder to ever play defense in college baseball, in my opinion, that I've seen. Now, I didn't see ones a long time ago. But okay, Kane's really good, and he's going to start everywhere in center field. Everybody we've played against, I think he's their center fielder. But Vance there are balls. I'm like, dang, you just realize how good that kid was. You realize how good he was. And then you start realizing how good D'Onofrio was. I think Tyson, he's made a couple boneheaded plays, but so did D'Onofrio, but he's also made some unreal plays. He's covered a lot of ground for us. Sawyer's been good in left. Perry's learning it. Rom was pretty good. But, we're not going to be as good, but we still are good. I think on the dirt, we've been really good. Vandy's made some errors, but he's also made some unbelievable plays in terms of unbelievable double plays. Again, Colby's one of the best defenders we've ever had here. But Amad's been unbelievable for us at short. And Gavin's been solid at third, and Stokely's been extremely good at first base, and Luke's been Luke behind the plate. So that's the most encouraging thing to me looking at our team is, man, like, you still have to beat us. Like, even if we're struggling with the bats for the most part, we're not going to beat ourselves on the mound, and we're not going to beat ourselves defensively. And left field, we're just playing different guys, and you just have to accept it and say, hey, there's not a lockdown defender out there. You're going to play whoever you think can bring the best chance to give you a good at-bat that day that's going to make the average play.
Talking with head coach Scott Forbes. Got a couple more questions. I've got something. You always talk about process-oriented and practice and working in the cages. Have you ever just had gamers where they sucked at practice, but they could play? And if you had somebody, how do you know? You know what I mean? Like, how do you play a guy that doesn't do it in practice, or can you?
It's hard. I don't think I believe in it, Tommy. I think that they're ultra gamers because of how hard they work. They're more gamers than others because their heartbeat might be a little bit slower. But, some guys may work even harder than this guy, but he still works. Like, to be successful at this level, you have to have a work ethic. You got to have discipline. But there are some that do have that gene, that they are better. I look at it more like they're better on a game day than they are in a scrimmage. The scrimmage to them it's just not the same adrenaline. You don't have that same feeling. And when you have that as a pitcher, your fastball goes from 89 to 94. you're not facing your own teammates. So that's more how I look at it. Like, I'm not putting too much stock in to Josh Horton's preseason numbers, because Josh is one year he took every time until he got 2 strikes because he wanted to work on 2-strike hitting before the season started. But I knew that he was going to hit 400, like that type of thing. There are some guys that just have that app. The game where I'm for more would be more for me titled, the bigger the game, the better they play. Regional, super regional, AC championship, rivalries, those type of things. You got to watch the guys that, like, in their mind, we play a team that's just not very good. They kind of just, they're not very good. You got to remind them, like in baseball, that guy on the mound is very good. That means their team's very good. And if
Absolutely.
we don't match it, we're going to not be happy.
Yeah, ask that question because a lot of people say, well, why don't they give so-and-so a chance? And I'm like, you have to understand, these coaches at all levels, but in college, are coaching for their livelihoods. They're not going to play a guy that they don't think is going to help them win. But then I ask you that question, if they're not that great in practice, how could you play them? And I think you explained it certainly satisfactory to me, but I wanted other people to hear that answer, because a lot of people talk about Allen Iverson. Darian Durant's probably the most – Durant's probably the most famous Carolina guy because he stunk at practice. But when football game came around, he played. So therefore the question, Grace might have a fun one for you to wrap us up.
Yeah, I tell you what. Yeah, that's the thing. People don't, like you said it best. You got to trust your players. Like, are they good base runners? Do they know the signs? Have they shown you they can play defense at a high level? Can they get a bunt down? That type of thing that people just don't understand. But like you said, that stuff don't bother me. It's just from the standpoint of, it'd be like me going to Inside Carolina. I don't work for Inside Carolina. I don't know how they run their business. I'm not going to try to tell you how to.
Fair enough. Everybody's a baseball coach, don't you understand? Everybody's an umpire in the stands and a baseball coach watching on TV.
Well, that's what coach, you have to, in my opinion, in coaching, you have to accept that, and understand it and not get into it and worry about it. And got to have thick skin, and you keep your eyes on the right things. And that's a complete waste of time. If there are any coaches out there, in my opinion, I've been coaching a little longer now. Like, I think that's a complete waste of time to do is read a message board, read about what somebody's treating, because it doesn't matter. What matters are the relationships you're building down there, and are you helping these guys get better? And like you said, the prep you're putting in, why you're making the decision you're making, and you make it.
I know that you've talked a lot about watching. I'll give you a fun one or two before you get out of here. Watching the 2004 Red Sox documentary about their comeback. I watched it. It was awesome. What was your favorite part about that entire thing?
The whole thing was unreal. I'm a huge Terry Francona fan, number one, because I met him. Great guy. Our team watched it. I did tell them, guys, you're not going to be doing shots before the game. That was one thing I was like, holy Moses. But I just thought the old school mentality of how those guys pitched back then of, hey, man, like, I'm going to control this strike zone. And if you don't like it, you're going to be knocked down. I thought I can't point out. I thought the whole thing was so well done because I respect the Yankees too. I would have to say my favorite part is just it'd probably be just the Big Poppy, like just his personality and what he brought to the team, and him being able to live with, like he talked about, like I felt like I had to perform and I have to be able to learn to deal with that because I was the best guy at the time. And that's how you have to be at this level. You're the best player. You gotta say, hey, I gotta be the guy that steps up in the biggest situations.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job. I love the Kevin Millar gets hit and Pedro's like, okay, who do you want me to hit? And then immediately and just like clunks one of the Yankees. It was great. Last question
Yeah,
for you.
NCAA, that's not happening in baseball anymore. Suspended for 2 weeks, and you can pimp a home run, and you can throw your bat, and you can do whatever you want to do. But if you hit somebody as a pitcher, oh man, So anyway, don't get me going on that.
I miss those days. You do too. School. You can't say it, but you miss those days.
I miss them. Oh yeah.
Okay, my last is we've talked to some of the guys about like their pregame routines, and I'm pretty sure Tommy asked you something about that question before I got on here. But what do you have pregame music that you listen to, or something?
Me?
Yeah, or something that gets you in the zone?
Oh no, I wouldn't say the zone. I try to exercise and take care of yourself during the season. I think that's important. I like to go as the season moves along. I'm a big Gimgle guy. I love to walk that circle. It's beautiful back there. After you get in I guess I call it moving around the older I get. I don't really call it lifting weights, but you do something in the weight room and then go on a walk. And then I like to pray when I'm walking. I don't shy away from my faith. I like to lean on that to make the right decisions. The days I don't have that time, even if it's 15 minutes, are the days that I'm not probably making the best decisions. The temper's quicker. So those type of things, just try to have a little bit of time to like, okay, when you're leading something, you got to be the one that's the most level-headed, that can handle. We had this discussion yesterday as a team about, not controlling your anger is a weakness. And Navy SEALs, they talk about that. So just things like that to try to calm you down a little bit before you're it's going to be an intense situation too. It's going to happen. Something's going to happen with an umpire. You got to make a big call. One of your guys gets hit. He starts walking towards the mound. Just trying to have a little time out of the office where your brain's free a little bit, where you can just actually think. That would be my routine.
What is Scott Forbes? Everybody has a walk-up song. What is Scott Forbes' walkout song to go get his pitcher? We got to come up with one.
If I had to come up with my own walkout song, golly. Oh, man.
Like Another One Bites the Dust.
There's something about trucks, hunting, fishing, loving every day. So
wow.
Just straight Sanford redneck country music, basically.
That is we've had the opportunity to spend some time with some of your family there, and the players' families and stuff, and I recognize that part of the crowd. It is home to me.
I can let the guy, I get into some of that. I try to tell the guys, I try to keep up. They like to play a rap song or a hip hop song. I mean, I'm not listening to that when I'm driving home in my truck, but I can listen to it in BP and say, hey, I like this song a little bit. Who sings it? And they'll tell me the rapper, and I'll be like, well, it's definitely not Dr. Dre or whoever we listened to back when we were younger. So, but I think you just have to have fun. These kids now more than ever, I want to take away some of the pressure that they have put on them by, I guess the best way for me to say it, or just, I don't know. I'm not going to say it. So people that,
oh my goodness,
people that shouldn't put the pressure on them. Like why would you ever bash a 18 to 22-year-old kid when he's doing everything he can to be successful?
I learned doing this stuff that they're just regular kids with a little bit extra talent than the rest of us. So they're just doing their thing.
And then not one of them has ever tried to fail on purpose.
Absolutely.
That I know of.
That you know of. I hope that is accurate. I believe it is. Yeah. That is head coach Scott Forbes. That's Grace Nugent. I'm Tommy Ashley. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt. Shout out to everybody watching, and shout out to the Tar Heels tonight at 6 p.m. against Gardner-Webb, and then Duke.
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, a big ACC series. Scott, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks a ton. Enjoy doing it.